What about Elon himself? It sounds like you spent quite a bit of time with him. What was your takeaway as you did work on the book?
Yeah, I was talking about a very narrow sliver of his life, right? So it wasn't like a lot of conversations, but it was really detail rich conversations around X.com, which was the predecessor company that, his half of the predecessor company that became PayPal. And we spent a lot of time just talking about like what it was like in those late 1990s, like go internet years. You were talking earlier about adoption curves, right? And this was like, that was the era where this was in the water. I think that the takeaway I have about him, and I'm certainly not the first, and I don't think we'll be the last to have this observation, is there's a depth of conviction about the things that he takes on that I think is unrivaled in American business right now. Like he is a true believer in the things he does, and he believes that he believes deeply in the mission of his companies, and that can sound like a really like sort of a blasé observation. It's different when you see the force of his personality when he describes something. It's amazing. And others have described it, but there is this sort of look in his eye that he is getting to Mars, right? Like, and there's a depth of belief there that just blows you away.
So there's this unknown story that you have about Elon Musk and how he almost died. And obviously the world would look very, very different. The colonization of Mars, space travel, EV, so many different industries would not be where they are today without Elon Musk. What's the story as to how he almost died?
Yeah, so there's actually, it's funny. There's two stories of near death.
Wow.
Yeah, one is in the book, and it's reasonably well known, though I was able to get both Peter and Elon to talk about it in a bit more depth. They drive together in a McLaren F1 that Elon has purchased after this successful sale of his first company. And they're in a pretty vicious car crash. The car kind of like jumps up in the air, it spins around, it's totaled, and they both survive. And even people who drove by who stopped to help, one of the people, I guess, who drove by to stop to help said something like, I wasn't sure if I should stop because I wasn't sure I was going to be ready to see what condition your bodies were in, right? So there's that moment of near death, and that's early 2000. A year later, this isn't in the book, and it's been lightly covered in other places. Elon contracts meningitis and malaria. And he doesn't just contract malaria. Like part of what I did was I went deep into like the different kinds of malaria and like what they are. I really, like I said, 5 years, I nerded out on this. He contracts the most virulent form of malaria. It's the one that will basically kill you within a day if you don't get treatment. And he comes within hours of death. And in fact, the person who treats him at the hospital had treated other malaria patients who had the same type of parasite. And both of the patients that doctor treated before Elon had died. And so there's this period in 2001 where for 6 months, he gets sick. They are figuring out what it is. At first, they diagnose it as meningitis. Then it turns out to be malaria, but he comes within hours of death. And what I had was this kind of like the executives and the company sharing their observations about this, the back and forth, who's delivering him flowers? Have we checked in? How's he doing? All of that. It is a very, very close shave. And he obviously survives, but history could have been very different if it had gone the other way.
I mean, that is an absolutely crazy story. And I don't think one that many people understand just how close it sounds like he actually was to dying.
Yeah, to be fair, when he tells it, he always ends with the line like, that's my lesson for taking a vacation. Vacations can kill you.
Absolutely incredible.